So perhaps I can ask these two questions, and these two questions I am hoping that we could have a bit more of an understanding of the core narratives. So, like, first question is, what are the central allegations made by U.S., UK, and Israel? And I mentioned these three countries because, it's getting more obvious that they are working together and against Iran recently, and how do you assess their credibility? And the second one will be, in what ways are these narratives strategically timed or politically motivated? Because it seems like everything is in time, in perfect timing, as you mentioned earlier.
So before the revolution, these countries, specifically the UK, France, America, see any country in the East, and when I say the East, I mean from Turkey onwards, as a country that needs to be dominated. It's uncivilized country. Its people are unable to organize and create advanced civilizations. So it's that kind of Orientalism that Edward Said has discussed a lot in his books and other works. So from then on, we come into 1952. They caused a coup d'etat, the United States and the UK, and forced out a democratically elected prime minister, brought back the Shah, which acted as a dictator and as a puppet for their interests, which led eventually to people having resentment towards how they were being governed, how they were being oppressed by the Savak, the secret service that was trained by Mossad and the CIA, and they tortured a lot of Iranians who kind of dissented against politically against the rule of the Shah, to the 1979 revolution. And this 1979 revolution had ripple effects all over the region, and if not the world. And so from 1979, Iran became more independent from US and European interference, or how should I say, use of its resources. And so from then on, this grudge against Iran's independence grew. And as Iran became more powerful over the years, it became more self-sufficient and able to defend itself and able to maintain some kind of success story. Not necessarily, I would say, the best example of what they could have achieved because of internal corruption, but the fact that they maintained their independence from both the Soviet bloc at that time and the Western bloc, and then later on when the Soviets collapsed, from any other bloc that was remaining, even though the United States became the hegemon of the world. And so we come towards 2001 when they invaded Afghanistan, and Iran had assisted the United States and its allies in preparing the attack and giving it information in the attack of Afghanistan. And so Iran, so you can see through media and intellectual thoughts and discussions, Iran is seen as an enemy. And some of the reasons were given was human rights abuses. Some of the reasons were given that it used chemical weapons, even though in the war in Iraq in the 1980s, Saddam was using chemical weapons against Iran, given to it by Europeans, specifically Germans, and assisted by the Americans. But Iran never created weapons of mass destruction, chemical weapons, and never used them. So then that didn't stick. So they started with the nuclear issue, that Iran is trying to build a nuclear bomb. This is, going back from the 90s all the way up to now. So you're looking at 30, 35 years where they keep saying Iran's going to build a bomb in the next few years, and it never has. So then now the issue is its missile defense program, something that they want to kind of pressure Iran to reduce its range to only 450, 500 kilometers, which is, not enough to hit anything. But why would any independent country accept such a kind of a deal where it won't be able to defend itself? For what reason? And all of these sanctions that have been placed on Iran to stagnate its economy, to turn the people against the leadership, hasn't been successful. It's caused hardship and suffering, especially for people who want to get chemotherapy medication or who wants to get medication that's specialized by certain countries outside of Iran, but they weren't able to get it. So many people died because of these sanctions, not just because of the fact that they couldn't get medication and stuff. However, Iran continues. It continued, never collapsed. It continued, and militarily became very successful. And one of the reasons why it's very adamant that it wants to continue the uranium enrichment is because through nuclear science, it's able to increase its capabilities in pharmaceuticals, in agriculture, and in other fields that other countries are not assisting Iran in. So it's becoming self-sufficient, and it's not many countries in the world that have the full cycle of uranium to enrich uranium and then the other end uses, which is nuclear power and also for scientific and pharmaceutical uses. So the United States mainly does not want Iran's independence. If Iran had accepted the foreign policy agenda of the United States and its Western allies, it would never be pressured. Because you look at the region next to it, you got the Persian Gulf regions, and none of them have a democracy. None of them have an elected democratic leadership or even a parliament. And so there's no pressure on them. So it can't be it can't be democracy as a goal. And then it can't be human rights because these Arab countries and many other countries in the world have worse human rights than Iran. So it can't be human rights. It can't be the nuclear issue because Pakistan has nuclear weapons. It's not sanctioned. They sold them F-16s. So it can't be the nuclear issue. So it just comes down to the fact that Iran doesn't accept US foreign policy, resists it, and enables other countries that want to resist it. It supports them, such as Yemen, in Lebanon, Syria until the fall of Bashar al-Assad, and parts of Iraq where not necessarily the government, but groups within the government, especially the military, paramilitary that helped get rid of Daesh in 2014, 15, 16, that maintained the ability for self-defense. So they had to take up arms by the fatwa of Sayyid Sistani that they have to defend Iraq. And once Daesh or ISIS was kicked out of Iraq or destroyed within Iraq, they realized that they should not put their weapons down and keep it in case Daesh or ISIS attacks again, or another foreign country tries to interfere in Iraq. Because unfortunately the Iraqi military kind of collapsed, as did the Syrian one. It folded when Daesh was attacking it in Mosul and other places. So it wasn't trustworthy. It wasn't reliable. The Hashd Sabi, the paramilitary that is now joined in the military but is still separate, they fight on ideological basis. They don't fight for money. They don't fight for a salary. So you can't. It's very difficult for you to scare them, if you know what I mean, to make them collapse. They will fight to the death for their ideology for the defense of Iraq. So Iran supports them, obviously for this reason, supports them, and it's most probably training or assisting the training of young Syrians who want to resist against Jolani's gang that have taken over Syria, to eventually, possibly like a group like Hezbollah, become a powerful force in the country in defense of the country. Because what happened in the 80s was, or the late, in the 80s when Israel took over south of Lebanon, the Lebanese military and government was incapable of doing anything after going through a civil war, so forth. And even now, when there's attacks, they don't do anything, the Lebanese military. It's only Hezbollah, a group of people got together, trained with Iranian support, and created the Party of God, Hezbollah, that's what it means, the Party of God. And over 18 years of resistance, they managed to kick out Israeli tanks and troops from most of South Lebanon. And it was a big celebration in 2000 when they managed to do that. And so it's possible that in Syria, there will be a group like that as well, where they'll be native to Syria. They want to kick out the oppressive Israelis and defend against them without the central government at the moment being Jolani's self-appointed government, whoever God comes into power, they will be the power that will defend south of Syria. And that's very possible that will happen, most probably, from the speeches of Ayatollah Khamenei. And so Iran acts as this older brother. They always call these group proxies, but they're very independent of Iran. A proxy would be someone who's not independent of Iran and incapable of anything without the direct support hand. We saw Hezbollah fighting for a year against, or how long it was, against Israel just a year or so ago, other than 2006 and other times that it fought. And the Yemeni, they're surrounded. They're not able to. Iran's not really able to get assistance to them as such, but they are firing hypersonic missiles to Israel and closing its airport and air bases and stuff, putting pressure on them. So they're not proxies. They're not controlled by Iran like a remote control. However, what is a proxy is Israel. Israel is a proxy of the United States. It acts in the interest, and without the support of the United States, it would collapse. So the taxpayers' money from the United States that should go rightfully to provide services for citizens in the United States is being used to provide free healthcare for Israelis and missile shields and defenses and prop up its economy, encouraging people who may be of some kind of Jewish descent to go to Israel and get a nice flat and home there and live there. I mean, not now. No one's going now. Most people are leaving now. But that idea would have cost money. Who was paying for that money? Israel's economy is not that diverse. People think it has a great economy. Well, this economy is imploding. It's just being propped up right now. So Iran being the main country defending these resistance and assisting them and being as an older brother, as I was saying, has been the target of the United States ever since. And if it collapses, what they would like to do, because Iran is rich in resources, is split it up into multiple countries. So you will have the Arabs where a lot of the oil is. You have the Baluchis, which are similar to the Baluchis in Pakistan. You have the Azeris, which would be ethnicity of the Azerbaijan. And then you will have the central, which would be the Persians and the Kurds. So they would divide this country as they tried really hard to do with Iraq, which were they were unsuccessful, as they're trying to do now with Syria, and they may be successful. And then when it's divided, it's much easier to control. It's much easier to extract its resources and play them off against each other. And that's the main goal. And once that happens, Iran won't be able to be that central country which connects the Belt and Road Initiative of China to the West. As we know, a couple of months ago, the first train came directly from China with goods all the way to Iran. And once it's connected to Turkey, it will then be connected to Europe through Turkey into Greece and other countries. And from the south corridor to the north for the Russian and African and Indian corridor, they will come to Chabahar, which is in the south of Iran. And from there, it would go all the way through possibly Azerbaijan. I don't know, because Azerbaijan is playing a tricky game of supporting Israel. And Iran may have to go to war with Azerbaijan because they've used Azerbaijani airspace and possibly bases to attack during those 12 days. But it would have connected Iran. Even if they don't go through Azerbaijan, there is the means of going through the Caspian Sea directly to Russia. So this will save a couple of weeks of transit for India to go all the way around the Suez Canal and the Red Sea, which we know at the moment is dangerous and expensive. So even there, they can't go. So they have to go through Africa to get to Europe, right? So Iran is a very important strategic place for China and Russia. And so that's why they were accepted into the BRICS. And that's why I believe Russia and especially specifically China is buying huge quantities of Iranian oil. Obviously, it gets it as a discount rate, so it also benefits, but it's not capitulating to the United States pressure of, sanctions against Iranian oil. It's still buying it and supporting the Iranian economy. And so I believe it's coming to crunch time when a few years the American economy is imploding from within, and it's got so many fragmented party politics where even MAGA is starting to eat itself from inside. Most of these problems is because the United States focus on Israel and support for Israel. If the United States didn't have Israel to drain its resources, one, drain its reputation internationally, two, and drain party politics, three, the United States would have probably maintained a stronger hegemonic ability going forward. But because it's made its name really bad in the world by associating itself with the genocide and the Holocaust, and Europe as well, obviously, but mostly America, and providing the weapons and providing such large amounts of U.S. Financial support to both the Ukraine and to Israel, it's damaging its ability to, as it's a strong country. We say that power is shifting to China, but that doesn't mean the United States is powerless. It just shows that it's not looking after itself. It's like a person who's become an adult and constantly is feeding healthy food to another person and eating the worst food it can for itself, so that its body is still there. It may be still big in size, but its body is becoming weak from internal lack of nutrients, and it's draining its resources to someone else, who I believe, if need be, the Israeli project designers would turn their back on the United States if they know they had another partner that would look after them the way that the United States does. They don't really care about the United States, and we've seen them say that a number of times. They even threaten the United States: if the United States goes against us, we would nuke them and stuff like that. So this is what's playing out, and Iran happens to be a player in that position, and so how it plays its part is very crucial, not just for itself but for the region, I believe.